Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, which we at SME in Advanced Manufacturing Media are proud to sponsor, Building a New Future, Progress on the National Network for Manufacturing Innovation, also known as the NNMI. I'm your host, Sarah Webster, Editor-in-Chief for SME's Advanced Manufacturing Media Group, and I'm delighted to have with us here today Mike Molnar, Director of the NIST Advanced Manufacturing Office. Mike has nearly 30 years of experience in advanced manufacturing, and in 2011 he was named the first Chief Manufacturing Officer of the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Today, Mike leads the NIST Advanced Manufacturing Program Office for extramural manufacturing programs and also serves as the Director of the Interagency Advanced Manufacturing National Program Office. The mission of the AMNPO is to foster industry-led partnerships and to form a comprehensive approach to strengthen competitiveness and innovation in U.S. manufacturing. The NNMI, which we're here to talk about today, is, in fact, a big part of that vision. Now, before the presentation begins, just a few housekeeping items. During the presentation, you will be able to ask questions using the Q&A box that appears at the right of your screen. Time permitting, your questions will be answered following the presentation. If time runs out, we'll make sure the answers are emailed to you. If you experience technical difficulty of any kind, please let us know through your Q&A box. If you have questions afterward, feel free to email me at swebster@sme.org. I'll rejoin you after the presentation for a Q&A and a few concluding remarks. Now, here's Mike Molnar.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm really delighted to be part of this session today. And in fact, if we look at SME, Society of Manufacturing Engineers, the tagline, Making the Future Together, is actually an apt metaphor for what NNMI is about. It's about creating a new space for collaboration for industry and academia. And in fact, before SME rebranded, the tagline before that was where manufacturing comes together. So both of those are, that idea is building a place for collaboration and innovation. The starting slide, if you notice, it's a bit unusual. It has the agency logos from the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, NASA, the National Science Foundation, and the Department of Education. All of these agencies have been highly involved and play key roles with NNMI, and in fact, it was always meant to be an integrated whole-of-government effort. So to begin, this seminar is going to cover some introductory materials, and then really to set a baseline, talking about manufacturing and public policy and why manufacturing has been really focused on here in the Washington, D.C. area. But to understand the program, it's important to understand the underpinnings with the public policy, both in what the administration and what Congress are focused on. Really, then to dive into three acronyms, PCAST, AMP, and NNMI. To understand NNMI, it's really important to understand the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, which is part of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. Then we're going to, the bulk of this is all about NNMI, covering the focus of having industry-led public-private partnerships, beginning with the design. The design of NNMI was all with the heavy involvement of the private sector, quickly covering the objective, mission, and principles of NNMI, a quick rundown of the current institute summary, which there are 7 active institutes. There are 2 more under solicitation and award, and goals that I'll be talking about later on. Then, to really understand what an institute is, we'll dive into one of the institutes, in this case the Advanced Composites Manufacturing Innovation Institute, for what are the 5 functions that are consistent with all of the institutes, swinging back into what Congress has authorized, and then in terms of a summary. So that's the really outline of the seminar. In terms of the introduction, I'm actually joining you from the picture on the left I'm at NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and for 114 years, NIST has been part of the fabric of the United States. Written into the United States Constitution is the role of Congress in setting weights and measures, and NIST was founded back in 1901 as the body that would develop not only the consensus-based standards, but also to hone the measurement science behind those standards. Today, what began as the National Bureau of Standards was expanded in 1988 into the current National Institute of Standards and Technology, and that expansion in the Organic Act was really about the larger breadth of mission for U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness. So not here to talk about NIST, but I did want to give you the background that NIST is actually industry's national lab, and there are two large campuses. What's interesting about NIST, and you'll find this if you go into other centers, other agencies, you visit Oak Ridge, for example, with user facilities, that's a big part of how the private sector can work with these national labs and federal agencies. So collectively, NIST has about 3,000 employees. If you visit either campus, you'll find another 3,000 are actually here, and they're actually from industry or academia with our laboratories and for our user facilities. Point of the slide is not to talk about NIST as much as working with the federal government, and because of NIST's unique role and its mission as a non-regulatory agency, this is why the administration set up as a home for the Interagency team, Advanced Manufacturing National Program Office. We have core offices at NIST. This isn't a new tack. Other broad initiatives that don't fit exactly within one agency. Many people are aware of the National Nanotechnology Initiative. So the core offices of that are at the National Science Foundation, but it's really meant to be an interagency team. That's what we have here is core team here, but it's really the larger effort from the aforementioned agencies. You'll see a number of other agencies, smaller logos. Everyone has been involved, but the larger agents, the reason for the larger agencies, each of them has an important part of their mission that touches on advanced manufacturing. They have activities and programs, and so from the get-go, they've been involved with the integrated team. So that's the AMNPO. That's the hat I'm wearing today in speaking to you, is the Interagency Advanced Manufacturing National Program Office. The last of the introductory slides is quickly, there's a lot of materials here, and all of them may be found on our portal, which is simply manufacturing.gov. So that is meant to be an interagency portal, and it definitely covers NNMI as well as other broad advanced manufacturing programs. Moving on into the manufacturing and the public policy piece, manufacturing, as this audience well knows, but actually was not broadly known by many others in the country, is the particularly critical importance of manufacturing and the fact that U.S. manufacturing was facing a crisis. First, something that is well known to anyone in manufacturing is it's a huge economic impact. In fact, the head of the National Economic Council is often says that manufacturing punches above its weight. But even because of the cascading effect, because of the role of manufacturing, but even setting aside the strategic linkages, if manufacturing was a separate country right now, it would be the 9th largest economy in the world. Today, it employs 12 million direct people, and according to how it's accounted, it employs another 6 million indirectly in terms of the manufacturing sector. So it is a big part of our economy, And it is also a place where it's good, high-paying careers that constitute 12% of the GDP and 60% of the exports. So the point of the slide is no news to the folks on this audience in the manufacturing sector that it's a huge impact economically. More to the point, though, this is certainly well known, but this was the point that PCAST focused on, that why they're saying it punches above its weight is that manufacturing has a special role in the U.S. innovation ecosystem. A third of our growth is due to innovation. Beyond all of the exogenous economic factors, it's the innovation that is driving the economy. In terms of manufacturing, 64% of scientists and engineers make their careers in that, 2/3 of the private R&D spend, and 70% of the patents. So manufacturing was viewed strategically as more than the 12% of GDP, but an integral part driving the U.S. innovation ecosystem. So that's why it was really, really special, and this is why something that was almost taken for granted, that as the world's largest manufacturer, the well-worn stories about, well, productivity, robots, whatever, this chart is meant to show that manufacturing is sensitive to the business cycle. That's what the gray bars are. But for our entire modern history, as productivity rose over sixfold, we had a stable workforce of about 18 million manufacturing workers. And then something fundamentally changed. And the story is complicated, but we lost a third of our manufacturing workforce that had not happened before. And that was juxtaposed at the same time. We always had a positive trade surplus in this category called advanced technology products. These are the products that invented here, developed here, high tech, the typical simple stories of manufacturing as commodity, it goes to wherever the lowest labor cost. That really doesn't apply for these sorts of categories, and for these, at the same time that we lost a third of our manufacturing workforce, we slid into an unprecedented trade deficit, which bottomed out 2 years ago at $100 billion. So this graphic is meant to show these are the things that it's not the labor cost, it's high technology invented here, but they're no longer made here. And the strategic issue with that, if a technology, if an advanced material is invented here, but all of the advanced manufacturing isn't here anymore, you don't have the ecosystem. And then as PCAST focused, where would the next innovations, the cycles of learning, take place? It's especially challenging to remain at the top of that innovation cycle if you're not making these things here. So that, in a nutshell, is why PCAST focused on this as a national initiative. What PCAST is the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. These are the best and brightest. This is not a political group at all. They had 3 separate reports. I'll summarize that on the next slide. But when we're talking about where did the idea of a national need for NNMI come from, these were the senior leaders. This was the steering committee behind something called Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, or AMP. It was co-led by Susan Hockfield, president of MIT, and Andrew Liveris, the president and CEO of Dow. But it was a mix of top universities and companies that were focused on this issue of what do we do. So wanted to summarize something. If you wanted to understand NNMI, the AMP report that came out in 2012, that middle report, is the report that called for it. To understand the whole policy framework, the 2011 report came out saying we have a national need. The U.S. needs an innovation policy. They did not call for an industrial policy. They called for a strong policy for innovation. And they pointed to the special role that advanced manufacturing takes. And they also called for a coordinated federal effort to partner with the private sector to do something about it. What do we do about it? The day that 2011 report was released, was the day that the AMP team was commissioned. They did their work and they came out with that 2012 report. The recommendations that came out, the lead recommendation was we have a structural flaw in the U.S. innovation ecosystem, and that the government can play a role in catalyzing it to have a place where industry and academia can partner to bridge that gap. I'll say a few more things about that in just a moment. And then there was a third PCAST report that came out with additional recommendations on implementation. So not belaboring these reports, but I can't think of any other time that PCAST had 3 successive reports about an important topic, and it really teed up the discussion. It was the reason for the administration taking a strong role. The administration took a very strong role and had been extraordinarily proactive at advancing these. And foreshadowing this, Congress has authorized NNMI in a very strongly bipartisan manner. So what I wanted to call into attention, not just NNMI, but the overarching public policy. The name of the game here is all 3 reports were calling for a new type of partnership where the government is helping to catalyze, to help bridge the gap. It's not driving, but helping to bridge the gap. They call for an industry, academia, and government partnership, and let's get going now. So all of those reports, I mentioned the manufacturing.gov, all 3 PCAST reports as well as many of the other reports, they're all easily accessible on our website. So let's dive into NNMI, or the National Network for Manufacturing Innovation. With this call, the President issued a call, let's get going. Agencies, let's work together as a team. Let's try a pilot. That pilot was the first institute, the National Additive Manufacturing Innovation Institute, on 3D printing, additive manufacturing. While that pilot was going on, let us design the approach. So this is a graph right out of the AMP report. The focus here is if you apply on the x-axis the technology readiness levels or the manufacturing readiness levels, we're talking about TRL 4 to 7. The U.S. is still the envy of the world in terms of our universities, our national labs, the basic science that is a public good that has public funding. The private sector, of course, owns all of the commercialization. What PCAST focused on was we have a structural gap that there is an underinvestment, and NNMI is designed to make it effective and efficient where the private sector can be creating additional investments in this 4 to 7. This is still in the pre-competitive stage. Some people have called this the missing Bell Labs or establishing the industrial commons. So what we did was, as an integrated team, that team of DOD, DOE, DOC, NIST, NASA, NSF, we held a 6-month RFI. We had 5 workshops across the nation. We had 21 specific questions about how to design NNMI, how to make it most relevant. We had this. There are detailed workshop reports for each one of the events and then a summary report. We had 1,200 voices, stakeholders on the design of NNMI, and this was published in a White House NSTC report, the National Science and Technology Council, in January of 2013. 2 quick things right out of that report. One is a cartoon, the wiring diagram. It's meant to show that NNMI is about creating the space for industry and academia to work together. You notice we specially call out not only large companies, but small and mediums and startups. They're exceptionally important. Every one of us in manufacturing knows that even the largest of the OEMs, depending upon their Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 supply base, for a great deal of the design controlled and the technology development. So small and mediums, having a place for small and mediums to bridge the gap, to learn about technologies and get it into de-risked and get it into their shop floor, was essential. The little brighter box is the shared use facility. This is why I started out with the shared use facilities here at NIST. Gave the example down at DOE labs. Shared use facilities are very effective, and we want the institutes to not just be a think tank, but also a do tank, a place where there are real things happening. Research is happening there. Research can happen elsewhere, but research is happening at a hub location, that there are real things. And as our leaders in DoD like to say, there's a loading dock out the back door. There's something really happening at each one of these institutes. The other thing I wanted to grab out of the report, if you open it up and the first page, there's a blue box. It's really the elevator speech for NNMI. And without reading the elevator speech, it's really about there are two fundamental complementary missions for each institute. It's to do the applied research for development and de-risking and speeding up what has been invented in a lab or at a university or at a company, but speeding that up, de-risking it, and getting it into a place where U.S. manufacturing can use it. Very, very important. But the other importance, even in the depths of the Great Recession, it was with painfully high levels of unemployment. It was remarkable that the number one issue that many manufacturers were identifying is that we still have a problem finding qualified, skilled people. So manufacturing workforce, the development side, is especially important. And so education and workforce, for each one of the institutes, for that topic, it's not that they compete with, but they collaborate with universities and community colleges and others, but they help form the basis for what education and workforce skills for that advanced technology or material should be about. Before we go on, just to give you a sense of the size, the other thing that we heard from the workshops is that it needs to be big enough to have the critical mass to be effective. So we had a baseline. Some topics may be much higher, but we did not want to have a small institute that was suboptimal. So the federal startup investment, it's meant to be a startup fund to establish these institutes with a goal of having it self-sustaining, providing value to industry, self-sustaining over a 5 to 7 year period. The federal investment is $70 to $120 million as a typical, but we don't want any to be less than that. And it has to have a minimum of 100% co-investment. So if there is not a co-investment in this, that's the signal that this must not be really important to the private sector. So each one of these has a minimum 1-to-1 co-investment. Moving on, if you read the reports, there's also a clear mission statement. This slide is meant to just simply show that to understand NMI, the program is really the sum of all of the institutes and a networking function. We have a mission statement for the institutes and a mission statement for the network, and the goal of the network is there to help support each and every one of the institutes be effective for the private sector. So very, very quickly, I won't try to describe these. I would not do justice, but I did want to quickly show the 7 institutes that we have now. And all of these are incredibly rapid. It just shows you the rapid pace of development. I mentioned this before that our pilot institute was the National Additive Manufacturing Innovation Institute, and they rebranded themselves America Makes. This was a multi-agency effort, but the Department of Defense is the sponsoring agency. You see their logo at the top right, but this was our first institute, and we've been learning from it every day, but it really validated the idea while we were doing the formal design. Its hub location is in Youngstown, Ohio. They've recently announced that they have a satellite hub in Texas as well, but they have over 100 members, and it's an exciting story about a very exciting technology. Each of these, if you go to our website again, manufacturing.gov, there is a one-slide summary for each one of them. You click again, and it goes off to their website. The second one is called Power America. It's about next generation power electronics, or the technology is wide bandgap semiconductors. And this consortia, again, the 70 million was matched by 70 million. This consortia is led by North Carolina State University. These numbers were the announcement numbers of the partners, the universities, and other labs. Just flashing these up to show you the topics again, but you'll notice all of them, there's a hub location, a strong group of the partnership at the start, 23 universities and labs for the Digital Manufacturing Design Innovation Institute in downtown Chicago. So DMDII was our third. The fourth was on lightweight and modern metals, rebranded as LIFT, Lightweight Innovations for Tomorrow. This is headquartered in downtown Detroit. The fifth institute is in Advanced Composites Manufacturing. This is down in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'll be talking about that in just a moment. The sixth institute, if you notice, this was just announced at the end of July. This is on integrated photonics. You notice that this is a very, very challenging, very exciting technology. This is something that will require a lot of investment to reach that critical mass. Notice that the federal startup funding of $110 million was matched by over $500 million of non-federal sources. The last institute that was announced is standing up now is in Flexible Hybrid Electronics, and their hub location is in San Jose. So before we go into explaining what the institutes are about, we have 7 active right now. There are 2 active solicitations, one on smart manufacturing led by the Department of Energy, and the next one is revolutionary fibers and textiles led by the Department of Defense. So it's the start of a network of institutes. So let's now go into what an institute is. And I'm showing you a picture from IACMI. This is the Composites Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Institute. The timeline there just shows you how rapidly things are coming together, and in just 10 months, rapid progress in establishing this public-private partnership. So for IACMI, quick profile again, this is headquartered down in Knoxville, Tennessee. The lead sponsoring agency is the Department of Energy. The startup fund to establish the institute was $70 million. This was met by, and this was at the outset, it's grown since then, by $160 million of co-investment. So in 5 quick slides, here is IACMI, the story of IACMI, but really we could take any one of the institutes and have the same 5 slides with some different verbiage for each. So the first one, there's a clear, unique focus for an institute. Its mission. And every institute has a clear mission based on a critical industry need. Everyone has, as the Boston Consulting Group like to say, the big, hairy, audacious goal that a public-private partnership is really essential to have. If it's a problem that a single company or a single agency or a single university or just a small group could handle, that's probably not appropriate for a Manufacturing Innovation Institute. So it has to be something big and challenging that independence, we need to be working in a collaborative manner to achieve this grand challenge. And what is this? The big idea here is that composites are an amazing material, except there is a catch-22 of costs are relatively high. So you see composites used in aerospace. If you want the best golf clubs, you're going to pay more, but you're going to get composite graphites and such. But the big idea here is that if we can work and de-risk and develop these processes, the goal here is a reduction of cost by 50%, not 5% or 1%, but 50%. Also, energy, the footprint, the energy footprint, the carbon footprint, the environmental footprint of this and all of our manufacturing processes are especially important. This is important to the sponsors of the Department of Energy. for the Clean Energy Manufacturing Initiative. So another big goal is to reduce the energy used to make these composites by 75% and increase the ability to recycle these materials by 95%, more than 95% in the next few years. It's an amazing goal, and if that goal is achieved, or I should say when that goal is achieved, it is a game changer. And in fact, for each one of the institutes, if we were talking about LIFT or DMDII, the first slide is, what's a game changer here? And the game changer for IACMI is, at that level, whole new markets and whole new products and whole new processes are suddenly viable. The second is, for an institute, is to build that value proposition to become involved. And for IACMI, it's the shared R&D resources. The single dollar from a company to be involved in these projects is multiplied, it's magnified. I just heard a major company, they are a Tier 1 member for every one of the 7 institutes so far, and they just reported that minimum they're seeing a 20-to-1 return on their R&D dollars by being involved with the institutes. Not only with the multiplication of resources, but with the focus on applied R&D, with the advent of the virtual factory and the workforce training services, the value proposition is built. If the institute does a good job with the value proposition, then what follows is the strong public-private partnership. And here's a snapshot of just a subset of the companies that are involved. No-name companies like Ford and Dow and General Electric, they are big Tier 1 members of IACMI. But equally important is the active involvement of top research universities as well as community colleges. So you'll see not only Knoxville, Tennessee, but University of Kentucky and Ohio State University, U of L, involved with IACMI, as well as not-for-profits, MEPs, lots of other organizations. So building the partnership, working together, they set a technology roadmap. What does the Institute work on? It's a collective from what the members are voicing is most important to them. They develop and own and keep evergreen a technology roadmap. They have long-term goals, and then they have workshops and such to set these. And then if they do a good job with slide number 4, they have a balanced portfolio of projects. This is really important to have not only projects that are sure hits, but also it's the mechanism to work on these things that are high risk, high reward, could take multiple years. It's something especially difficult for a single company to be involved in. So 5 quick slides for what an institute is about. Every one of the institutes would be able to have great slides for each one of these 5. And now a quick segue to, at the end of this past year, strongly bipartisan, the 118 bipartisan sponsors, 50-50 from both sides of the aisle, they endorsed in something called the Revitalize American Manufacturing and Innovation Act. And this provided us unique authorities, which was very important to NNMI. It made the program official. It provided a pathway for new centers of manufacturing innovation or institutes that are open topics, that the topics or technology focus might be priorities for industry, but they may not be priorities for the government. So until we had RAMI, we would not be able to establish an institute on something that there wasn't a current federal need for. But as you see, it really is about building a place for the private sector to benefit from. So that's an important new authority, to have competitions that have open topics where anyone can propose a topic for a new institute. So RAMI was an important enabler, and it enables us to create networking functions to support the institutes. So in terms of a recap, I quickly reviewed the 7 active institutes right now. I mentioned the 2 that Department of Energy and Department of Defense have active solicitations right now. In the FY15 plan, that's what's part of this. In the FY16 President's budget request is additional institutes. The goal is to have 15 institutes active by 2017. And the president gave a policy address speech where he set the long-term vision of a complete network of 45 regional hubs within 10 years. So all of our work has been not only in establishing the institutes now, but in creating the right framework for a functioning, strong network of these hubs that are focused on creating at scale that missing middle to help industry and academia bridge the gap. It creates the industrial commons. That's actually an economist term where it explains why even big companies that have been around for decades consciously say, here's why we are underinvesting in this. It's because investments in that industrial commons can take many years, but a development in that area would not only help the company, but help the entire sector, help their peers, help their competitors. So NNMI is an effective way that we help make these investments, but the R&D, the intellectual property, is owned by the people that are developing these projects, that are owned by the people that are running the projects in the institutes. It's the mechanism for these longer-term investments to make it effective for industry to be making these investments in the TRL 4 to 7, not only for quick hits, but for short and even long-term. And of course, not only the R&D side, but the workforce development. So really, total summary here, it's about creating a new pathway for U.S. advanced manufacturing capabilities and industries. So with that, went through a lot of slides. Again, I'm representing the Interagency team. For information, again, please see our website, manufacturing.gov. Each one of the institutes, the current sponsors are the Department of Energy, Department of Defense. Go to manufacturing.gov. You can quickly peel off, and I think there's an exciting story to tell for each of them. And you will see this. According to RAMI, there is the first of an annual report that will be delivered to Congress and made public. So we're working on that right now. Very soon we will have the first annual report and the strategic plan for what NNMI is about. With that, Sarah, I've gone through lots and lots of slides. Looking forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Mike, for that very informative session. This is Sarah again. If you do have a question, now's the time to put it in your Q&A box, and we will make sure that we sort those and get those to Mike live. We do have a couple of questions in the queue already. Mike, you said the vision for the NNMI is 45 institutes. I think that's what's been laid out. How are the technologies being mapped out behind the scenes so that the requisition or the bidding process can then begin? Can manufacturers or individuals play a role in influencing what technical topics get selected next?
Oh, what a great question. So did I mention to understand NNMI, it's really good to understand PCAST and AMP. So two sources to start with. One is that AMP report, they enlisted hundreds of subject matter experts in industry and academia, and they not only prepared that assessment, but they identified 11 critical national challenges in advanced manufacturing. If you look at our present institutes, 8 of those 11 have already been touched. So we take that input very, very seriously. When we did the public workshops, one of the questions of the 21 I mentioned was, what is an appropriate topic that has the potential for high transformative impact for U.S. manufacturing that industry would co-invest in? We got over 700 responses, a lot of duplicates, which is a good thing. If a lot of people are saying the same thing, that's a validation that that's a very good topic. We boiled that down into 135 topics that industry and academia said that these would be really good topics. All of that, again, is in a summary report on manufacturing.gov you can take a look at. That was the starting point. that sourcing, and up until the RAMI legislation, the DoD and DOE could sponsor institutes that was a current mission need. So backing this up, there was a bright case made for why the Department of Defense needs advances in additive manufacturing for national defense. That whole case was made. It was seen as a priority, and not only for that, for the gaps in development, but a public-private partnership would be an effective way to develop that. So that's the process. There is a mission need in defense or energy, and it aligns with the needs, the model for NNMI, and the appetite for industry to co-invest in it. So that's how we all started. For each one of the agency-sponsored solicitations, I glossed over a lot of these, but the topic is selected based on federal agency mission needs, but that is informed by a great deal of input. Both DoD and DOE put out requests for information asking for additional input. They selected they got the topics. They did other outreach to further winnow down the list. Then they had public workshops. So every one of these topics was the result of RFIs and workshops, and then the topic was selected. That's announced, but the competition is open with selection by merit to competing consortia. Giving a little bit more than the question here, but this is an important part of understanding the awards. These are all cooperative agreements to a consortia to lead and run these manufacturing innovation institutes. So up until RAMI, it was mission need, greatly informed, and with the upcoming institutes, we've already had workshops and we continue to have RFIs, and we always want to hear from the private sector on relevance. Post-RAMI, what RAMI has required is that we embark upon a new type, which is we have an open competition where the government does not pick the topic. We will accept any topic. So that's where it's highly valuable for consortia to be thinking about, is this an important topic for us? And to help frame that, you can make a proposal. You don't have to wait for the government to identify a need. So all of this is very current, and we're looking forward to the FY16 budget. The federal government is under a continuing resolution right now, but with an FY16 budget, we anticipate moving ahead with the agency-sponsored topic selection as well as the first of the open topic competitions.
Mike, we have a number of questions here. I'm going to just tell folks who are asking about whether slides will be available. We will have a replay available on our website if you go to our webinar channel. So for those of you who are looking for slides, those will be available. Our next question comes from someone who says, as a mechanical engineer, this topic is very exciting. What's the best way for me to get involved?
Oh, what a phenomenal question. And it's actually an easy question because this isn't something I'm an engineer, so I'm not very good at jokes, but the best one I have, for 25 years, I was the guy from corporate that would show up at a plant and say, hi, I'm from corporate, I'm here to help you. And I'd have to prove by my actions that I really was there to help. I guess today the joke is, hi, I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help you. That's not the message at all. The message is not, please join NNMI. It is not possible for you to join the network. Really, what should be going through any company or organization, not-for-profit or university, is why one of these institutes is a really effective way for you to double, triple, quadruple the technology development to de-risk it, to get it into a commercial state with lowest risk and quickest time. So quick answer to that is, how can you be involved? Go shopping. Go look at the 7 that are active right now and see if any of them are of interest to your strategic plan, to your business plan, to your, if you're a startup, if you're a venture, if any of these are relevant to you, this could be a very effective pathway to help you take your IP, which will be protected and developed. That's part of the whole IP approach, and for you to help commercialize it. So look at the institutes and see what's relevant, and then every one of them wants folks to join as a membership. In fact, I mentioned DMDII. They actually debated, should we have membership free for small and mediums and startups? And they decided, no, let's make it a nominal amount. So for $500, a small company can join for DMDII and be a member of the consortia. That's what we want to have. Is if you're excited about this, the next step is for you to look at any one of the institutes, talk to them, go to their website, go visit. They are anxious to have you become involved.
So Mike, our next question is there a way for organizations to network or find other like organizations that may want to contribute to a new institute or submit a proposal?
Oh, another great question. Yes, we've actually been, quite frankly, amazed at the response of the private sector. When this was starting, many people thought you're not going to get multiple competing consortia bidding on this and coming up with 100% co-investment. And in fact, every one of the solicitations has been actively competed, and it's not a matter of one consortia wins and all of them lose. Rather, it's a selection by merit, and the winning consortia, the folks that were involved with other consortia, then there is a matching process. So I mentioned the best solicitations that we have. We've been organizing industry days. You can attend it via webcast, or you can attend it live, and it's sort of like a speed dating approach for folks that that are interested in either leading or being involved in a consortia. We're not in the role of managing this ourselves. It's really up to the private sector. We've created LinkedIn sites, but the fact is that when a solicitation is live, look at what's happening, go to the webcast, and join in any one of those. And then once the cooperative agreement is issued, please consider joining the institute itself via the consortia.
Our next question, how will these NNMI developed technologies get spread to small and medium-sized manufacturers?
Oh, I mentioned before, another great question, small and mediums, it's the lifeblood of manufacturing in most places, but especially the United States. So we want an active role in small and mediums, as well as a pathway. And this is why the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, NNMI, is a network that is focused on applied technology and workforce for advanced manufacturing. It's not the silver bullet, but rather it's meant to be complementary to the other things that are in our country, both private sector and federal programs and public-private partnerships. For over 25 years, we've had the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, or MEP network, with centers in every state. So MEP plays a special role, and in fact, MEP has memorandum of understanding, MOUs, now in place. They are actively involved, and we see MEPs not only being involved for a small and medium to be involved with an institute, but the MEP network as an important conduit to help understand what's happening at the institutes and making small and mediums aware of it. So if you're a small or medium-sized manufacturer, if you are unaware of the MEP network, there's one close to you, and their mission is to help you be successful as a small and medium-sized manufacturer.
How do we compare in the U.S. to other countries as far as manufacturing technology investments in workforce education?
That's an interesting question. There are different approaches in different countries. I mentioned part of the PCAST 2011. they weren't calling for an industrial policy, they were calling for an innovation policy. Other countries unabashedly, nope, the federal government is going to pick the winners and the losers, and we're going to have these champions. So it's a bit of an apples and oranges kind of question. Other countries have made massive investments in it, and in fact, that is what has exacerbated this gap, because other countries have really focused on this and built bridges. NNMI is not a copy, but has many similarities with, the largest of these is the German Fraunhofer network. So if you look at the Fraunhofers, it is a large investment. That is seen as the German ecosystem. The United States ecosystem is quite a bit different. So the levels are different, how you account for it is different, but NNMI is designed to be optimally sized and scaled to plug into the U.S. innovation ecosystem.
We have another question. Most of the institutes are concentrated in the East. Do you expect to see a more universal distribution across the country in the future? And it seems as though some of these are tied directly to universities in terms of their location. If you could elaborate a bit on location selection.
Oh, another great question. This comes up a lot, that why did the government pick Chicago? And actually, the government does not pick the location. So if you look at any of the solicitations, they're really looking for three big things. One is the technology case of why this consortium has the right stuff. The business case for the, do you have the right players that not only will work now during its incubation period, but can achieve a self-sustaining status. But the third piece is it's all about the hub, the location. Every institute is meant to create a brand new manufacturing hub or dramatically strengthen an existing manufacturing hub. Hubs are everything to manufacturing ecosystems. So the hub location, they had to make a case for, propose why you are located here. It has to have national impact, but there has to be a location. The only requirement that we have is that it's located somewhere in the United States. So with the first several, the very best proposals happen to be in these locations, and we fully anticipate that we're going to have a lot more diversity as we have more institutes. The flexible hybrid electronics is out in San Jose, California, so that's very much not on the East Coast. But I would, not to belabor it, but I think what's illustrative is that the consortia lead for LIFT, the Lightweight Metals Institute, was EWI, formerly known as Edison Welding Institute, which is an amazing organization in Columbus, Ohio. They proposed that the hub location be Detroit. It would have been far easier for them to propose Columbus, Ohio, but in their proposal, they made it clear that the right location for this, to not only the small and mediums and the supply base and the technology, but they were the ones in their original proposal to be in Detroit. So, long-winded story here, but the location is really up to the consortia. Make the case, and we are very confident that as we get more institutes, you will see more and more geographic diversity. It's really what makes sense for where is the most fertile ground for a manufacturing hub for that material or advanced technology.
So Mike, it was inevitable we got a political question. I'm going to send it your way. Have any of the presidential candidates expressed support for the centers or the whole NNMI effort?
That's a good question, and I don't know. I've been following the debates, but I haven't heard manufacturing talked a lot at this stage of the game. I think it's a very good development that both Republicans and Democrats in Washington have been talking about manufacturing, and I would point to both the House and the Senate has a manufacturing caucus. But in terms of the pre-primary things, I don't recall anyone commenting on NNMI. I think the few things that I've heard that leaders know that manufacturing is important and that having a sustained, strong industrial sector is important to not only national security, but economic security.
So we're at 3 o'clock, Mike, and we're going to take one more question, and then for those of you who asked a question that hasn't been answered, we'll get you an answer offline. Our final question, what is education and workforce development role of NNMIs, and how is curriculum and training resources relative to technology the focus of an NNMI, and how are they related to colleges and universities, maybe not directly connected to an NNMI?
Oh heavens, that's a $10 question, and I'm not punting on it, but I can't give you a top-level answer because the answer is going to be very, very specific if you're talking about, it gets down into the institute level. And the exciting thing is there's a great answer for each one of the institutes. So every one of the institutes, I would suggest, love to follow up with that person, but if you go to any one of the institute websites, there is an education and workforce, find out what they're doing. It is quite a gamut of activities, not only involvement with research universities and community colleges, but student outreach and competitions that institutes are doing. I would not do them justice if I tried to, off the top of my head, list them. But, for example, go to America Makes and look at the top dozen things that they've been doing for education and workforce, beginning with student competitions and having students involved in becoming more aware of additive manufacturing.
Well, thank you again, Mike, for your time. As promised, all the unanswered questions will be passed along, and you can expect a reply through email. Also, this entire webinar will be available for replay by 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and you can access it by using the same sign-in link that you used to get on in the first place. We also encourage you to mark your calendars for our next webinar, which is sponsored by Intel, about using big data in manufacturing. That event will be held at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, December 8th. And beyond our webinar series, SME and Advanced Manufacturing Media have a wide range of ways to keep in touch with the latest developments in manufacturing. Please make sure to visit our website, advancedmanufacturing.org, where we have the latest news about the manufacturing sector, including the NNMIs, with a focus on manufacturing technology and research. You can also follow us on Twitter at MFG News, where we have more than 13,000 followers. Thank you again for your time, and have a great day.